Hello and good evening to everyone. Today we are on the third day of this exclusive program being planned by Committee for Members in Entrepreneurship and Public Service to develop entrepreneurial vision in our members. And extreme gratitude to the chairman of the committee, CA Hansrachuk, and vice chairman of the committee, CA Dheeraj Khandelwal, and to the entire Central Council and leadership of ICAI. We are honored to have today CA Raj Chawla, Central Council member of ICAI, for the opening remarks. And please help me welcome CA Raj Chawla ji with a big round of applause, and I hand over the screen to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Baveja ji. Good evening to all. I am very happy to attend this program on this entrepreneurial week, out of the cubicle into the fire. So friends, I welcome you all. An entrepreneur is a dreamer, thinker, and most importantly, a doer. In India, the best examples are Flipkart, Nykaa, Ola, etc. These all ventures are run by a person who had desire for entrepreneurship. In India, as we have seen that many of businesses, especially new business or what we call startups, are founded by persons belonging to engineering background. Even yesterday, because I am the vice chairman in MSME and Startup Committee also, yesterday we celebrated the Startup Day because 16th of January is the Startup Day, and you will be happy to know that more than 8,000 chartered accountants have viewed our that yesterday program. Fantastic. So we CAs have limited ourselves to practice or corporate roles only. Very few of us go forward becoming entrepreneur. No doubt, the option of practice and corporate role is also nice, even worth the money. But seeing the vast domain of knowledge which a chartered accountant carries, I feel we should take an initiative for entrepreneurship. An average entrepreneur might need months and years to understand how to manage the finance for new ventures, but a CA already has gone it easily in very short duration. The great thing about entrepreneurship is the unlimited income potential. The only limit to the money you can make is the value you provide to people. The more value you provide, the more money you can make. In short, entrepreneurs are often thought of as national asset to be refined, motivated, and remunerated to the greatest possible extent. So let us all thank an entrepreneur. Chartered accountant have always shown their excellence in corporate role and practice. We should look ahead into venturing out as an entrepreneur also. Believe me, chartered accountants can do wonder here also. And yesterday I have seen, as I mentioned, that more than 8,000 chartered accountants had shown their interest in being our startup program. So if you want to become an entrepreneur, think, reinvent, then execute. You are the next entrepreneur. So my best wishes to all chartered accountants. So also in this current scenario that we are sitting in Delhi, and our today guest speaker, CA Dinesh Kothari ji, founder and managing director of Delhi Private School, is sitting in Dubai, and our next speaker of today program, CA Devesh Rakhera ji, founder Yearbook Canvas and Marwari Catalyst Venture, he will join from Jodhpur, and CA Karan Malhotra, CEO and founder Star Fino, will join from Delhi. So this is the in this time, due to this technology, we can connect from anywhere. So with this, I am thankful to Baveja ji for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, for your warm note and opening remarks. Thank you for your encouragement. Today, our first speaker, C. Dinesh Kothari, he is a senior member from Dubai. He lives in Dubai, and I will take some time to introduce him. Mr. Dinesh Kothari is a chartered accountant by profession, having 46 years of corporate and entrepreneur experience. He arrived in the wonderful country UAE in the year 1974. From 1974 to 1987, Mr. Kothari served in Bukhatir Investment Group in Sharjah. Hard work and dedication saw him rise to the position of CEO of the Bukhatir Group at the young age of 29 years. After 13 years of service, he branched out and set up his own corporate advisory and investment banking. In furtherance of investment banking, he then diversified to merger and acquisitions practice, thus bringing foreign investment in Dubai. The need for quality education at affordable cost was the driving force that motivated Mr. Kothari to embark into the most honorable service, the field of education, establishing Delhi Public School, DPS Jodhpur in India, a not-for-profit school in the memory of his late grandfather, Shri Shugan Chandra Kothari, who was his inspiration, who spoke of students, knowledge, and empowering women. Moving further, he set up DPS Sharjah in 2000 and DPS Dubai in 2003 in UAE, the country where he grew professionally and becoming an entrepreneur. This satisfied his need to return to the society and to serve the community, committed to providing quality education to the Indian diaspora's children in UAE. Mr. Kothari has been conferred with Pride of India Award by Indian Business and Professional Council for contribution in the field of education and honored with the prestigious Mother Teresa Award by Mother Teresa International Awards Committee for excellence in the field of education. What he is most proud of is gamut of awards and accolades won by DPS Sharjah, Dubai, and Jodhpur as an institution and by the students of these schools. He loves poetry and is a trustee of Ibadat Foundation promoting poetry. Loved by his mentees, family members, Mr. Kothari is also a taskmaster and very dedicated professional whose vision is to play a pivotal role in the field of education and contributing significantly to the society. We are very honored to have you, sir, here today. And we are extremely thankful that you took out a few minutes for our young members, for our members who are looking forward to become an entrepreneur or who are already in this journey of entrepreneurship. I request all present here to give a big virtual round of applause to our esteemed speaker. And sir, I hand over the screen to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhajit ji. And thank you so much, Avlazab, for a wonderful introduction to the evening. Let me, it's an interesting topic. I mean, I just roll back a little bit of the time when I came here in 1974, where we were and where we are today. So when I started my career after doing my CA from SB Bilimoria and Company with ICICI Limited, when it was a development bank, and out of Mumbai, and worked there for a few years in the project appraisal department, which was a wonderful thing. And then somehow I got a good opening in Sharjah with Mr. Bukhatir, where I joined him in 1974 as finance manager of one of his companies. Now, why am I giving this background is more to demonstrate a country where I came in 74, which had hardly any infrastructure. The tallest building was ground plus 4 floors. And the roads were pretty narrow, and even we all used to have load shedding here. From there to having the world's tallest building, the most modern infrastructure, most outstanding quality of healthcare, education system, and so on and so forth, is demonstrative of the fact that when you walk the journey of competitive advantage, you create a business model purely through your innovation, and that's where the rulers of UAE have been extremely visionary. And that's a lesson that I learned over a period of 48 years. And that has been, I would say, a tipping point, or you can say a guiding factor towards what I have been able to do. Fine, today we look at where I stand, and, I feel very satisfied and I feel very accomplished. But, sir, I can tell you one thing, that this where I stand today, the destination of success, I did walk through quite a few streets of failure. Journey was tough. And that's where the challenges come in life. And that's where you start thinking, what competitive advantage you should build. One advantage I started from was my degree, chartered accountancy. As you said, sir, earlier, Mr. Chawla, that as chartered accountant, we know the figures and numbers much before we start the business. And that was one big advantage I had when I started my career. I worked for Bukhari for 14 years, and then I realized it was time to go on my own. I did not have a definitive path. I did not decide that's exactly what I'll do. I thought I'll start from something which I'm good at, which I thought my professional taught me, which was accountancy. So I got into advisory services, and I got into that. And through that, I realized pretty soon that I was not very good in taxation, but I was very good in making transaction, evaluating transactions. So I developed into merger and acquisition, and that was one area which we did extremely well. And as the time goes by, you walk your journey, and then you realize that in consulting practice, it was basically living by the week. Every deal was, once it is done, you had to look for the next one and the next one. And that's when I started thinking what to do. And I started my first project in Jodhpur, and I got into the field of education when I set up the first school in not-for-profit in 1997. In 2 years' time, that project took off well, and we did partnership. And to excel and to have advantage, you always need to have partnership with people who have the knowledge. So I partnered with Delhi Public School Society in 1997 for my first school in Jodhpur, and learned from them and got going, and that was successfully done. And then I realized that my Karam Bhumi was UAE, where I have grown, where I grew up. That's where I made my career. So I thought of doing the first project in Sharjah. And in year 2000, we opened the school in Sharjah, 2000. And from 185 students, and today we are 6,000 students in that campus. And Dubai School, we have 4,000 students in campus. The reason I'm giving this background is to how did we get there? And that's when the competitive advantage or innovation comes into play. There are many schools. We all teach exactly the same textbooks. What do we do different is what makes the difference. So we do the same textbooks, we teach exactly the identical curriculum, but the methodology of teaching is different. And very soon I realized that unless and until we create an institution of excellence, unless and until we have an advantage, an edge over the competition, we shall not survive. We might become a Me Too school, and there are many, and one of them. And that was not the objective that I started with. So we had to start from somewhere where I said, look, we need to excel. So important thing was how to reinvest your money in your resources. And resources are not only building and bricks and mortar. The resources, in particular in education sector, are your resources, are your teachers. So we do, and we did for last 22 years, massive investments in the professional development of teachers. There's one big advantage that is necessary, one big ingredient which is necessary for successful entrepreneurship is reinvestment of your resources, part of your resources in development of your technology, development of your knowledge, development of your resources through plant and machinery, through equipment, through digitalization. Most importantly, investment in your teachers, investment in your staff, investment in your team. Because if you have a good team, then your business is successful. It's not one man. It's not one Dinesh Kothari you can lead and create an institution of 14,000 students. The team in which we invested a lot of money, and we continuously do even today, keeps us ahead. And that's which is very important, that unless until we create excellence in the space we are in, we shall not survive. And that's where we had to build that competitive advantage. We are amongst the late starters. We are not amongst the first starters. We are amongst the late starters. But the reason we were able to run fast and catch up was because our investment in quality was probably much higher than most others. And that's what makes us different. As I said earlier, that at the end of the day, we teach the same books, we follow the same curriculum, but we do it differently. Our investment in technology is much higher. And that's what one needs to do if you do a business. You have to keep your eyes and ears open you have to know what your competition is doing all the time. All the time is all the time. You cannot say that I have done well, I am successful, so I can go to sleep. Let me tell you, you go to sleep and man, the rest of the world will make sure that you stay asleep. So you have to stay awake. You have to continuously explore. You have to continuously experiment with the new ideas. And most importantly, you have to keep your eyes and ears open to learn about technology, to learn about international developments that are taking place. You cannot stay behind. If you want to stay ahead, there is only one way: run faster. Run faster than others. We had a dream, and God has been kind that we've been able to accomplish. We wanted to be role model. We want others to follow us. We want others to say, that's what we want to be. And that's where we are. And that makes a world of a difference, that you set yourself the bar of being at a level where you want others to follow you. There's one thing that I think helped us a lot in building Advantage, where we could not and we did not lose our team or staff to our competition. Okay, little bit of attrition will always be there. Somebody like to grow. In one school, there can be only one principal and 4 vice principals. And if somebody is good, they like to grow, so they might leave us and go. So we are in a way very proud that our team members have been able to become principals elsewhere, which is fabulous accomplishment as far as we are concerned. So that's one area where we need to make sure that we stay ahead of others. See, there is one thing very sure in this competitive world. There's one place there's always room, and the room is at the top. That means quality. If we do whatever we do, whether we are in the manufacturing line or service sector or education sector or hospitality or healthcare, if your quality is good, if you are outstanding in terms of your quality and service, believe me or not, you are not scared of competition, because you don't have competition at the top. There's always room at the top. So one area where we must always focus on is quality, quality, quality. These are 3 successful words. If we follow these 3 norms, quality, 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 we are there on the top. And therefore we beat our competition. We beat our, what I should say, disadvantages. Because when we keep our eyes open and keep our eyes on the competition, what do? We learn from them. We learn from them and see what we don't do, what they are doing. So you adopt that. And I'm sure all of us make mistakes. So we also find out what the mistakes competition is doing, and we try to make sure that we should not repeat those mistakes. So competition is one of your best teachers. If you want to remain in an advantageous position in a competitive market, keep your eyes on your competition. Learn from them and avoid the mistakes that they are doing. And believe me or not, then you do pretty well. You stay quite ahead. That's a very interesting thing. And when it comes to innovation, there's a great word. How would innovation really happen? It's not something that you can go to supermarket or you can go to some shop and pick up these things. That means you empower people who work with you. You empower the team that works with you. As an entrepreneur or as a boss, you should not be telling them what to do. You should listen to them what should be done. And as long as we can listen to our team who work below us and respect their ideas, that means you empower them, you respect them. That brings a sense of belongingness. That brings a sense of ownership. When you listen to your team and you implement even one idea out of 5, there's a phenomenal sense of ownership. The team stands with you like a rock because you respect them. You will find most of the organizations which have failed have not failed only because they had money problems or marketing problems. They've invariably failed because their management has been poor. They have not been able to retain good team. They have not been able to have the belongingness of the team, the bonding. Today's times and world, the era has gone where there's one boss and everybody is subordinate. Today, it's a teamwork. So second big lesson that I learned at a very young age, I must say, when I became CEO at the age of 28, 29, and people were not willing to accept me because most of the people working in the group were in their late 30s or early 40s. So they thought, how could this little kid tell us what to do? So that was pretty soon I learned that I will not tell them what to do. I'll ask them what should be done. And pretty soon they became my friends. And once you have your team with you as your friend or the staff working with your friend, then you become a successful employer. Then you become a successful entrepreneur because they know your thoughts, your ideas will be respected and you will not be brushed aside. You know, many times organization, your boss says, you don't know anything. No, why tell them you don't know anything? Tell me, how can I help you to know it? And believe me or not, that brings a sense of belongingness, that brings a sense of ownership. And that is something very, very relevant in my experience of 48 years that I've been working and 45 years that I've been running businesses. One of the key elements I've always laid emphasis on is man management. And man management is not only taking care of their housing and allowances and salary. Man management is giving them the wings, giving them respect, giving them freedom, empowering them. These things, they bring the best out of the person. And that time, they don't think they work for you. They start telling you, we belong to this organization. And that sense of belongingness is so much more important. There's a very interesting thing I even now tell my senior team. There's a window and mirror policy which I have adopted, and I request all entrepreneurs, and it's not a request, it's a suggestion, that we must have a window and mirror policy. That means you, as an employer or as a boss or an entrepreneur, look outside the window and give the credit to the people who are working outside. When things go wrong, look in the mirror and take the blame. Then you are a leader. If you're not a leader, you cannot be an entrepreneur. Putting blames on staff, putting blames on teachers, staff or people working under you doesn't get you anywhere, let me tell you. Now, these are not scientific innovations, but they're emotional innovations. How well can you innovate ideas of connecting with your people? How well can you stay bonded with your people? Find innovative methods. At least try to have with your team twice a year a small dinner. These are not technological innovations, but today half the problem is happening in the businesses and elsewhere is the emotional quotient is missing. There's no business, there's no activity which can survive if the emotional quotient is weak. Because at the end of the day, we all are human beings. We may work with the best of machines. We may work with finest equipments. But at the end of the day, we are human beings. And unless there is emotional connect, we don't give our best. So that's something that I have learned. And these are the few things that I have done in my life. I'm not technologically very savvy, and I have no hesitation in admitting it. And whenever I have problem, even today, I'm willing to go to my junior most team member and ask him, can you please teach me what to do? That gives them the sense of connect with you. So these are the few things which we must do. And let me tell you, entrepreneurship is a joy, but it's a tough journey. And God never promised us this silky path to walk, but he promised us one thing, that if you have courage, there's a beautiful thing waiting for us at the other end. So walk your journey, be an entrepreneur, and let me tell you, don't be scared of any challenge. Don't be scared of any difficulty, because at the end of the day, we cross our journey only when we walk. We cannot go to the other side of the river if you don't know how to swim. We can't go to the other side of the bridge if you don't cross the bridge and walk on the bridge. So walk on the bridge, swim through the river, and believe me or not, we chartered accountants can achieve everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your very enlightening journey, and you are an inspiration to thousands of members all across the world, being from Jodhpur, and then no, everyone knows you well in Middle East, and I'm sure many must have got inspired today with your journey, which is always making a difference to us, and. Thank you for being here with us today, and please accept our gratitude.
Prabjit, if I have 1 minute, I like to close it with a 5 sentence poetry of Harvansh Rai Bachchan.
No, sir, we have a lot of minutes, sir. Please carry on. Yes.
कि सफलता एक चुनौती है, स्वीकार करो. सफलता एक चुनौती है, स्वीकार करो. सोचो, समझो और सुधार करो. असफलता एक चुनौती, मतलब फेलियर एक चुनौती है, स्वीकार करो. सोचो, समझो और सुधार करो. जब तक न सफल हो, नींद चैन को त्यागो तुम, और मुश्किलों से घबराकर मैदान छोड़कर मत भागो तुम. आखिर बिना कुछ किए तो जय जयकार नहीं होती, और कोशिश करने वालों की हार नहीं होती.
Thank you, sir. The difference which you make with your poetries and the events which you do for poetry is something which everyone looks forward to in UAE. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I hope I'll have opportunity of interacting with young chartered accountants. If anything I can do to sit with them and talk to them, I'll be very pleased.
Thank you, sir, for always taking out time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we move on to our second session of the day, where we have our young member, CA Devesh Rakhecha from Jodhpur. Devesh is a chartered accountant cum entrepreneur who found his love at first sight with food. After establishing Marwari Catalyst and Yearbook Canvas from scratch to scaling its successful exits, he has mastered the art of building and scaling world-class businesses from scratch. Being a people's person, he has been instrumental in building a powerful network with venture capitalists, angel funds, AIFs, and family offices. His expertise in the field of fundraising, product and business development, and scaling startups has made a big difference to different ventures at all times. He invested and built a portfolio of over 35 startups at Marwari Catalyst. He has mentored and advised more than 200 startups. He has built India's largest yearbook publishing company and Asia's only yearbook publishing company through mobile. He has demonstrated growth of startups from Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4 cities of India. We are very privileged to have you, Devesh, here today. And I request all our members who are present here to please give a big virtual round of applause for Devesh. And Devesh, the screen is yours. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here. Very excited to talk to my fellow CAs whom I look up to whenever I'm in need of any sort of help. So as I'll talk about my journey, I'll explain why I feel so proud to be a chartered accountant. Right. So I'm a 2006 pass out CA. When I became CA, unlike all other young kids, the dream was to get a very good job. And my dream was to go and settle in New York. That was the ultimate aim of my becoming chartered accountant, 2006. When I moved to Mumbai from a very small city called Jodhpur, it's a very, very, very beautiful city. Right? The world was full of opportunities, but that thing of going to US was available with very limited organizations. So I did my own research, and I realized that only few investment banks, which are US based or UK based, they would send their employees to outside India, particularly where I was willing to go. So that's where I landed up with Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley is still my first love because of its own business principles, and they turned a very casual kid into a very matured man in 5 years of time. And working with Morgan Stanley taught me the value of hard work. Like Dinesh sir was saying, right? There is no alternate for hard work, discipline. Then you need to have your own business principles or other life principles. That's what I learned from Morgan Stanley. And suddenly in 2011, something happened, and I realized that I would need to go back to my hometown, which is Jodhpur. In spite of having my dream offer in my hand, where I was asked to go to New York, right? I decided that that was something which I never wanted in my life. I wanted an impactful life, a life which is actually having some identity. So the first hitting point or trigger point for myself, where I decided that I should go back to Jodhpur, where I should come back to Jodhpur, was losing my own identity in a very large organization. Though I was earning huge amount of money, getting good bonuses, living my life, spending money on weekends, right? But that was not the impactful life which I wanted. Second was uh, that time I decided that I did not want to always be into job. So I came back to Jodhpur in 2012. And I was so shocked to know, because when I came back to Jodhpur, the ultimate purpose was to start my own business, right? So when I came back to Jodhpur, I was astonished to see the change in consumer behavior. I'll give you an example what actually happened. When I left Jodhpur, cafe means cyber cafes, where we used to go chat with, chat with people or do some sort of internet surfing, right? And when I came back to Jodhpur in 2012, cafes were nowhere around, and cafe actually meant cafe coffee days, or places where we meet up and have coffee. So this was a change in consumer behavior, and I wasn't able to cope up. And on that particular day, I realized that in spite of having a very good job at a very senior level, earning good money doesn't teach you entrepreneurship. And I was nobody. So I tried few businesses, and I realized that I wasn't ready for business. So I started working with a very small organization, but it's one of the largest organizations of Jodhpur. It's into flexible packaging. I still respect the owner, Mr. Sripalji Loda, because for 4 years he acted like my rich dad. I'm pretty sure everybody would have read this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? I would have read that book at least 10 times in my Mumbai stint, right? I actually realized what is it actually means having a rich dad in your life, where he taught me having larger vision, being very high on energy, doing the things out of the box, whatever, right? So for 4 years, I worked with this organization. Uh, Again, the aim was not to be in employment forever. So was lucky enough to do their operations. I actually led their factory. It's a very complex manufacturing process. I led their manufacturing operations. I led their procurement. And the best journey in these 4 years were doing corporate sales, where probably this was the time which actually built me, which actually built the future of Devesh Rakita. So one good thing which an entrepreneur should always have is having skills to sell. So what I'll do while I'll talk, I'll just jot down some points which I've learned in my last 4 or 5 years of entrepreneurship journey. Right. Then I moved to another funded technology company as a CFO of that organization. It's a funded technology company where 50% stake is owned by one of the very good guy called Mr. Dilip Singh. He's based out of Florida. In his personal capacity, he also used to invest in different startups where he used to involve me. And when I used to work with him, I realized the game of valuation, and probably this was the time where I started finding my own inclination towards startup valuation. Uh, and then my third job in Jodhpur, or fourth job in my life, was with Anand Rathi Group. I was group head of finance for Anand Rathi for almost 1 year. Until 2018, what I did, I started two businesses, and they were not good. They were not success stories. And why they weren't success stories? Because uh, entrepreneurship can never be part time. Business can never be part time. It has to be your full time passion. Yes, once you are successful, you can have multiple businesses. But uh, in my opinion, having a job and having a part time business will never work, because you consume your energy for some monthly salary, which is a kind of addiction, right? And then there's a larger thing which requires your larger focus, your larger part of your energy. You are not able to give it back. So that was my learning in 2018, and that's where I decided that that was it. And at the age of 35, it was a very difficult thing for me to leave a very good cushion job, a 9 to 6 wala job, and started my first startup, Yearbook Canvas. Yearbook Canvas, we used to do in Yearbook Canvas, we used to solve a very bigger problem. Right? You would see in developed nations and even in Dubai, most of the colleges and most of the schools, they have their own yearbooks. But this culture was relatively new in India. And how it was done in India was all the students, let's say, so it began with IIMs, IITs, and then it moved to some bigger colleges, and then it is gradually moving to some smaller colleges in India right now. But it was a pure manual process. So what we started doing was, am I audible? Okay, am I audible, Prabhi?
Yes, Devesh, you are very much audible. Yeah.
Cool. I just saw a message of Jaiswal. Sorry, JP Jaiswal, sir. Okay, so we started working on improvising this process, and with the help of technology, we actually turned around this yearbook process into 20 days, 21 days, right? Which was usually a process of 6 to 9 months, where a batch of 400 students or 500 students would capture all the images, collate all the images, write testimonials for each other using Google Form, try to collate this data and design it and print and send it to their fellow students, right? And that too with lots of errors. So what we did, we quickly created a software and turned this entire process, automated this entire process, and quickly scale this business up. And within 6 months, we were lucky enough, right, that starting a startup from Jodhpur and getting a valuation of $1 million from a very big venture capital fund. And there I realized that what is the value of equity. What happens in startups, people just keep on going, rather diluting the equity, raising funds. And I realized at that time that equity is the most, I would say, costly form of investments or funds. So there we decided not to dilute 22% or 25%, which the investor was asking, right? So we raised small amount of funds at that time, though the offer was of almost 2.5 crore rupees at that time. Then scale this business up. Somewhere in March 2020, I even got an offer of $5 million valuation and raising $1 million from a Japanese company, which was at that time Japan's largest photo selling book. And they saw lots of synergy with my organization. That thing did not happen because of pandemic, and we still survived without even raising funds. And then I took exit from this startup. Parallelly to this, what we did, I used to travel a lot in smaller cities of India to convert to my clients, like to talk to IIMs, IITs, or bigger colleges, and they are usually in smaller cities of India. And whenever I used to visit these places, I used to meet the startups guys of these places. And I realized that ecosystem is altogether missing. Now to talk about ecosystem, what is ecosystem? Ecosystem, according to me, is nothing but an environment which supports your dream. It could be anything, right? So if I have to say, I want to plant roses in my farm, right? I need to have an ecosystem which supports roses. Similarly, if you go back, right, and we realize in India, the highest number of IAS and IPS come from UP and Bihar because that ecosystem supports it. If you have to talk about chartered accountants, I'm very proud to say this thing that Jodhpur produces one of the largest quantity of CAs from India. And the reason is because the ecosystem of CAs in Jodhpur is good. That is what ecosystem does, right? It helps you to a good ecosystem acts like a catalyst to achieve your dream, as simple as this. So I realized that ecosystem of startups was missing altogether in smaller cities. Even people never knew what is ecosystem of startups, right? So we built Marwari Catalyst, scaled it up, and then I took exit from it very recently in the month of June 2022. And then I was on a sabbatical because I've actually worked for almost 4 years. I don't even remember taking half day break or even a break of 1 hour in last 4 years. So that was the time I decided to take a good break. Never spent good time with my family in last 4 years before leaving Marwari Catalyst. So spent good time with my family. And then what I'm doing currently right now, first, I've decided to build my own commercial complex. It will be 50,000 square feet complex in the heart of city in Jodhpur. Then I created another consulting firm where I work with very, very, very limited organizations. As of now, I onboarded only three organizations where I consult with them, right? So in my personal capacity, I've raised 6 rounds of funding in my own startups. I've led them rather. Then I've helped at least 10 startups to raise their own funds, which is anything between $500,000 to $1 million. Right? That was my uh, role in these startups, scaling up the businesses using technology, right? Building good teams, ensuring that these companies are able to grow and survive in sustainable manner as well, even if when there is no fund. Because what happened in COVID, my startup yearbook was we got a commitment, but we never got funds, right? And no one can blame anyone. It was all because of pandemic. So we decided to work on lean team. We survived in COVID, where people were bleeding because of lack of funds. As Dinesh rightly said, that startup don't die because of lack of funds. They die, according to me, they die because of lack of energy, right? So we knew, I knew the value of energy. So motivated the team. Half of my the entire team worked on half of the salary. Right, I was able to repay them once the pandemic is over. The business started growing good, and we raised good funds as well in later stage, right? So this is what I realized. So very specifically, I work with three startups as of now. They are doing amazingly good job. Amazingly good job. I was one of in Dubai with one of my startups very recently, where I interacted with lots of fellow chartered accountants, and I got very good response to the startup as well. Then I'm also on board of few larger startups as a board of advisor, where I advise them about fundraising. I advise them about scaling up the business. Uh, Apart from this, at least 12 hours a month, I spend some time with uh, startups of Jodhpur on pro bono basis, because I remember when I got into entrepreneurship, right? I never hesitate to ask help from anyone. Uh, one of the characteristics for any entrepreneur is to ask help. Most of the times, people feel reluctant to ask help. Uh, but I learned it very early stage of my corporate career that I never hesitated in asking help. So I still ask help whenever I am in need of any help. Right. So that's what I do. I help give back to my society on pro bono basis. I spend 12 hours a month, and that's specifically 12 hours, not more than that, because I have to value my own time. And when it comes to future, I'm working on something very very I would say very exciting thing on stealth mode. It's taking its own time because I don't want to get into this game of valuation where the startup is valued at X and then the same startup is buying its own equity at 0.25x, right? I don't want to get into this game. I'm just building a sustainable business. So that's what I'm working on right now. Now, talking about entrepreneurship, it's very because how I try to uh, how I represent myself is a chartered accountant and entrepreneur by passion, right? So I'll try to explain entrepreneurship in my own ways because that's what I've done in last rather 4.5 years. Uh, Entrepreneurship, according to me, is just taking risk, right? Anyone can be entrepreneur. Being a chartered accountant, we all decided to get into entrepreneurs, CA, right? Unlike all other courses, CA is one of the most riskiest course, one of the most riskiest education stream where it's very easy to get into it, but it's very difficult to come out of it. And I've seen people struggling because of some other reasons during this journey. Even I like it's almost 17 years I became chartered accountant, right? And I still get this sort of. Sometimes I get nightmare that I'm into mid of my exams, C exams, and it's very difficult to when I wake up to accept that that was a dream. Sometimes I would vision a dream where I've lost my way towards my examination. Also, that was the pressure which we all CAs would have taken, right? So taking admission into CA course itself is a kind of entrepreneurship, according to me, and I really admire every CA around the world, right? And then what I've also learned about entrepreneurship is one cannot learn entrepreneurship by reading books or by watching videos or by attending any sessions, right? Entrepreneurship is an experience. It's an experience where people will have to dive in, learn things, fail, never accept failure as a failure. It's just an event. Learn from failures, move on things, be very quick on taking decisions, and moving on with failures. Right. So this is what I've learned about entrepreneurship. Then there are various aspects of a successful entrepreneur when it comes to uh, a successful entrepreneur, right? Team building is one. Asking for help, being energetic, taking risk. Again, I would repeat it at least 4 or 5 times, right? That uh, so what happens in even in employee life, right? When I was an employee, people, my bosses used to tell me that they will sacrifice it entrepreneur, and I used to understand at that time what he or what they actually meant. So entrepreneur came from this word called entrepreneur, and anyone who is willing to take risk, according to me, is an entrepreneur. So we would have seen lots of people who do different sort of stunts, bungee jumping and all. So according to me, even they are entrepreneurs, right? It's just that some people do it for fun, some people do it for money, some people do it for passion, right? But all are on anyone who is willing to take a risk or is taking a risk, according to me, is an entrepreneur. We may call them with different. We may kind of use different words for them, but they all are entrepreneurs. Then, when it comes to getting into entrepreneurship, it's a different journey, altogether different journey. Uh, Sometimes it's very lonely, very lonely, and sometimes it's very exciting. And because of these changes in emotions, people do some stupidity. Sentimentals, people do some stupidity. Entrepreneurs should be calm when it comes to taking decisions. And most importantly, apart from this, team building is another important characteristic of any entrepreneur. You need to have a very strong team which are willing to die for you. And what happens when an entrepreneur is working with? So I'll give you my own example. I used to work very closely with my second boss, Sripalji Loda in Uma Panibar. Uh, I became entrepreneur while working with him only. He used to teach. He used to guide me how to do something or why to do something and how when to do something, certain activities, right? And just by observing things or working with him, I used to observe him a lot, right? I realized that why he's one of the best entrepreneurs I've come across in my life. So decided in 2015 only that when I grow old, right? So what I've done, I've decided that how I would behave when I'm of a certain age, right? So I decided that how I would behave when I would be 55. So I've kept my own benchmark at that time, right? Having said that, uh, you have to be calm. You have to build strong team, and you have to start asking help and trust people. Most importantly, trust your own guts, right? Uh, Taking calculative risk or doing some sort of analysis and taking any decision is very important. But sometimes your gut is something which will help you to grow in your life, entrepreneurship life, right? Then another activity for any entrepreneur, what I've seen is networking. You have to do lots of good networking, like because your network is your net worth. And what I've learned in my life is if you are with five good people or rather five successful people, you'll be the sixth successful people. If you are staying with five entrepreneurs, you'll be the sixth entrepreneur by default. Because that's what these five people will do. They'll always be passionate. They will always be talking about business. They will always be talking about their own problem solving ability, right? And when you are with them, you will automatically turn into these people, right? So if you are staying with five failures, you'll be the sixth failure. As simple as this, right? So choose your network very wisely. Be with the people, highly motivated people who will uplift you. Having said this, I'll tell one thing, very interesting thing, right? So when I created my first startup, I was supposed to raise funds, yearbook canvas, and I'm very proud to say the first six investors were chartered accountants across, and the same thing happened in my second company only. Out of almost 40 investors which we onboarded. Almost 22 were chartered accountants from across globe. So I built a network which follows the sun. By this, what I mean is people from Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Vietnam, entire India, UK, entire Middle East, right? Lots of people know me in Middle East because of my last stint. Then USA. This was the network which I was able to build. And people from all these places, and the CAs from all these places, they invest into my organizations. One good thing which I did before I quit Marwadi Catalyst or exited Marwadi Catalyst, I was able to give exit to all my fellow CAs, and exit was very decent exit, right? So still hold this network with me, right? So whenever I'm in need of anything, I would just call one of my network, and uh, sometimes, or rather most of the times, right? I'm very active on LinkedIn, right? Whenever I need any help and I find a relevant person, I would schedule a call with that person and then try to explore some synergy in my area of interest or in the area of interest of that other guy, right? So you have to be very opportunist when it comes to buying on opportunity. Right? Now, uh, entrepreneurship, I can talk and talk and talk about entrepreneurship, right? Probably I would rather talk only those things which I've learned in last 4.5 years, right? One ability, one characteristic for entrepreneurs. So I still mentor some startups, as I told you, right? One thing which I always tell them is not the ability of not giving up, right? Because when you get into entrepreneurship, as I said, that sometimes there's lots of loneliness, right? And in spite of being around with your family or your best of the buddies, right? The stress of your own passion or following your own dreams or solving your bigger problems, right, is so different that you would feel lonely. And that was the time when one should not give up, in spite of having all the things, everything in place, right? Entrepreneurs might give up, and I've seen people giving up in entrepreneurship very easily, right? So not giving up is very important in entrepreneurship, right? As Dinesh sir was saying, team building activity, right? Team is the most important thing which will define your success or your failure, right? Uh, Keep an eye on the numbers of the employee turnover and all. And if the numbers are not good, right? If people are leaving your organization, I'll be very straight that the person leading this organization is not a good entrepreneur. If people are leaving for no reason, right? There is no reason to leave the organization, but there is a reason to leave, stay with the organization. And if you are not that reason, entrepreneurs uh, journey will be very difficult, right? To build a team which will die for you, and vice versa. Connect with them. I still remember my first startup, right? Rather in both of the companies, right? None of the employees ever leave, right? It was me who asked. So what I used to do, I used to work with every individual person who wasn't performing well, right? If someone wasn't performing well, I used to closely work with this guy, and if some things were not working around, I would ask the person to leave very politely, rather help the person to find another job which is suitable for that person's skill. This is something I would want to talk about entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship ecosystem. As I said, right, any environment which supports a particular purpose is a good ecosystem, right? I give an example of IIT. They say what happened in India. The best of the startups in the beginning phase, right? They were from this community, IIMs and IITs. The reason was they were early movers, right? We will see now in upcoming future lots of CAs doing good job in startups, right? Lots of CAs, and the simple reason is as a CA we know lot of things about financial acumen, which is the most important aspect of entrepreneurs, right? You need to be very good with numbers, you need to be very clear with numbers, you need to be very good with taking decisions which are supported by numbers. Any person who is not good with numbers, that person may be good with marketing, that person may be good with operations, but not a good entrepreneur, right? So I'm very hopeful because I'm seeing this trend in India as well. I mentor at least 3 kids who have left their job. They are good CAs, and they've moved into startups. So any ecosystem which supports your purpose is a good ecosystem. So what is required for entrepreneurs ecosystem, right? The first pillar is entrepreneur himself, right? Entrepreneur who doesn't give up, who is very passionate, high on energy, very positive, team building, networking, uh, hard worker. There is no alternate for hard work. The only alternate for hard work is hard work aligned with good brain. The hard work aligned with smart brain. Hard work aligned with smart work, right? That's the only alternate for hard work. There's no alternate for hard work. As Dinesh was saying, right? There's a race and there are two people who are running, right? One person is running 2 hours. So it's let's say it's a 100-kilometer race, right? And one person is running for let's say 5 kilometers, taking rest. Another person is just running fast because he is built for hard work, right? The person who reaches first is going to win the race, right? So the person who runs fast with longevity is going to win the race, right? Never giving up is another thing, right? So the person who is willing to take risk, able to build good team, able to build good network, never gives up, very passionate, very positive. This sort of entrepreneurs are the first pillar of a very successful entrepreneur ecosystem. Second ecosystem, which we usually neglect, right, is the family of entrepreneurs, the friends of entrepreneurs, right? We usually neglect. I could be nothing without my own family. They always supported me. So my father used to work with Bank of Baroda. He's one of the most conservative humans I've seen, right? Very caring. I'm 40 right now, and he still cares for me. So over caring, having a over caring father, right? But uh, uh, family who supports entrepreneurs is again one of the strongest pillars of entrepreneurship ecosystem. Then comes different pillars, right? I'll again say some interesting story, right? When I became chartered accountant, when I became CA, the only news which were there, right? Even for IITians and IIMs or any sort of MBA or any sort of CA was कि एक बंदे को ये salary मिल गई है. A kid who got XYZ salary. That was all over in news. What happened right now? I don't remember what seeing this sort of news. कि इसको इतना salary मिल गया, उसको इतना salary मिल गया. What I see, a 19-year-old kid treating unicorn. A 55-year-old man leaving his job and creating business. These are the news which are very prevalent in India. Again, and a very good fact about Indian. I'm just talking about entrepreneurship. That is the reason I'm just sharing this example, right? The strongest economy of the world is US, and the reason is they always supported entrepreneurs. In last few years, I've seen this support in India supporting entrepreneurs, particularly startups. I could see so many schemes launched by government of India only to promote entrepreneurs of India, right? The money is given to bigger organization, which is given to the smaller startups to solve larger problems, and that's how good almost 70,000 startups are there only in India. And as just one second. Sorry for this. What has happened in last so many years in India? Every student, whenever he or she used to clear the exams, the ultimate aim was to get a good job. That created a huge supply of employees. But there were very few people who were willing to take a risk and start the business, which will actually consume these employees, right? That was the reason lots of people were forced to leave India and go outside India and do the job outside India or do the business outside India. What has happened in last 4-5 years? Because of entrepreneurs ecosystem robusting across India, people are moving into entrepreneurship and starting the businesses, solving some larger problem, and then consuming these human resource. So this one good movement which I've seen in India in last 4-5 years, which is actually because of a very healthy ecosystem of entrepreneurs, right? Then there are different pillars of ecosystem like government policies, market, and then customers. I can talk, right. It's very subjective thing to define ecosystem, right. And I always believe that entrepreneurs should always be a personal experience rather than a bookish thing. It's always like, and be with good entrepreneurs, and you'll be an entrepreneur yourself, right. And CA being one of the best example of entrepreneurs, right. We have taken a risk, got into this education stream, which is one of the toughest education stream. So I congratulate everyone over here. This is what I would want to talk. Thank you, Pradeep, and thank you, ICI Dubai, for having me over here.
Thank you, Devesh. Thank you for becoming part of this initiative by Committee for Members in Entrepreneurship and Public Service, where under the leadership of Chairman, Central Council Member C. Hansraj Chugh and Vice Chairman C. A. Dheeraj Khandelwal, this committee had organized this program for the 5 days, where because of support of you, CA Nirlab Bhatt, who is from past chair of Doha, Qatar, we could gather, we could have the esteemed speakers and other leaders from all over the world. And you have very interestingly talking about the ecosystem of entrepreneurship. So today you are in your home city, Jodhpur?
Yeah, I'm in home city, Jodhpur.
Okay, fine. So very interestingly, you have spoken about your experiences, which have been there for you, for different initiatives you have taken, for different startups you founded, and how it made a big difference. I would request all members, as we have 5-10 minutes to go, if they have any questions, you please post it there on the link you are viewing. There is a space for you to put your question, and Devesh can then answer you. Meanwhile, Devesh, if you would like to do any small survey with our members, then you can ask any question. They can post it, and I will read out the answers for you. Is there anything?
Sure.
Yeah.
Just one question. Like, I'm not sure how many people are attending, right? But how many people are willing to? How many people are in job right now and they are willing to leave the job and get into entrepreneurship? I would want to know this.
Yeah. Thank you. So all who are here today, if you are in a job and you are willing to move to entrepreneurship, you can share that. You can leave. Say that if you don't want me to read your name, you can say it anonymous, and I will not read it out. And then and if you have any specific comment on this question.
Also, while I'm sorry, I just interrupted you, Pradeep, right? Also, while mentioning if the answer is yes, I would want to know why. Also, if the answer is no, I would want to know why. Why you like so? Because I'll tell you, from 2012 until 2018, I wasn't able to leave my job because of only one reason, and that was a very hard-hitting experience for me. That world's worst addiction is not drug or anything else, not porn, not even food. It's monthly salary, and I'm being very candid with you because of this addiction of monthly salary. I wasn't able to leave my job and start my own business.
Right.
The first business which I started in 2014. It could have been a huge business, right? But I had to shut it down because I was getting a very small amount of salary and I wasn't willing to leave that salary.
Right. So there are two things to share with you, Devesh, that we did got 10 responses, and 7 of them said that they are willing to leave and go into full-time entrepreneurship, and 3 said no. And that may be the reason, as you said, and also everyone have their different challenges. One thing which one of our members is asking, Lake Raj Sood, he's from Pune. He's asking, how do you increase your relevant network, like building on the network, if you can guide? Yes.
All right. So you have to be very outspoken to have a good network. So networking, according to me, is a transaction, right? Like, I'll buy something from you and I'll pay you some price only when I get a good thing from you. As simple as this, right? So you need to build your own value in market, right? It could be anything, right? I'll give you an example. LinkedIn, according to me, is the best networking tool as of now, right? Those who are not able to travel. I travel a lot. I travel at least 15 days a month. Out of 15 days, 7 or 5 days is to the places where I usually not visited, right, in past. So when you go out, try to meet people, right? And if you already have a very kind of respectable network as of now, this will be kind of multi-level marketing effect, right? If you are willing, so I'll give you an example. I help at least 3 startups as of now on pro bono basis. I don't charge them anything, and the idea of helping them is to help them grow. That's it. So what these people have done, they have got me a bigger client, right? When I talk to anyone on LinkedIn, I usually comment. So there are 2 persons. One is just liking a post. Second one is putting a good comment. Right? You'll get good network. People will judge you by your language, right? Then having a relevant network is a very subjective thing, right? I would want to network with anyone. So I've got friends whose age is 14 years until 65 years, right? And there's no purpose of having such friendship. When it comes to global network, I'm very proud to say that I've got a network which follows the sun. Japan to US, Japan. So follows the sun means wherever the sun rises, I've got I've got network over there, right? So these networks are built very randomly. When I see someone doing good job on LinkedIn or Twitter, I would approach them, congratulate them, or rather, I would want to connect with them, right? And whenever people find some synergy or some benefits from you, they would want to connect you. So you need to have that content in you. You need to have that quality in you, and people will be you have to become a magnet to attract people. Have a very positive attitude, right? I talk sometimes. I'm very humorous, right? So I crack lots of jokes, which is not a good part of my professional life. But I am still like this. This is what I am like. So people connect me because of this reason sometimes.
Right. Devesh, we have one member from Bangalore who says that he is into entrepreneurship, but he's finding it very difficult to make money and survive. So any insights you can give if anyone is facing such challenges?
Sure. There's only one line: don't give up. So to all the members, right? I'm very active on LinkedIn. My name is Devesh Kakecha. You would have read my name, right? Anyone could reach out to me anytime, and I'll be very, very, very happy to help you, right? I'll tell you, in 2020, when the pandemic actually was at the peak, it was lockdown, and my business was almost zero, right? I had to take loans from my friends to pay school fees of my kids, right? And I never gave up, right? So what happens? Good times are only for a phase of time. Bad times are always there for some period of time, right? They are not forever. So whenever they are good times, don't be overwhelmed. Whenever there are bad times, don't give up. Just survive. If you are able to survive in this period, right, you will realize that you will be a different person at the end of this time. So don't give up. Find solutions, right? We are chartered accountants. We solve lots of problems, right? People trust us. So the biggest of the companies, their larger problems are solved by chartered accountants. So we need to solve our own problems. please reach out to me if this person needs any sort of help. I'll be very, very happy to help.
Thank you so much, Ravi. So I request our young member who is into entrepreneurship from Bangalore struggling, who said that, please connect. And I would also further add, there are a lot of people around us. Everyone may not help, but there is no harm in asking. I'm not saying
Absolutely.
that we are there to beg. We are there to spread happiness for each other around, and there's a lot of good things happening. And I'm sure, I wish everyone very best, and I'm sure the challenges which are there will always be sorted, because I have, in one of the conference many years back, there was one question someone asked, and there was a very senior person. He commented that the life's other definition is being hard, because life is anyways not easy. Every individual will have their own different kind of challenges. So therefore, it's the magic of life that difficulties come and we resolve it and we solve it. So thank you so much, Devesh, for being here, for taking out your time and giving a very beautiful insight on the topic which was given to you. And we hope from the committee, from our chairman, vice chairman, for everyone, a deep gratitude to you. And we look forward to hear you some other time. And thank you.
Looking forward to, and all the best to everyone. Right? Just to end one thing, just to last thing, which I always tell myself, particularly to the entrepreneurs, right? Have faith on your own guts. Have faith on your own capabilities, right? So my grandfather used to tell me this story कि एक चिड़िया जब एक पेड़ पे बैठती है, वो ये नहीं सोचती कि जो वो ब्रांच है वो मजबूत है, वो चिड़िया ये सोचती मेरे पंख मजबूत है, right? So just stay strong, have faith on yourself. As I said, it will be very lonely sometimes when you are an entrepreneur. This is a time when you should not give up, because good times and bad times are just momentary. The best times are yet to come in everybody's life. So all the very best. Life is a journey, so enjoy it at the fullest. It's not the destination, right? So all the best.
Thank you so much, Devesh, for these beautiful and encouraging words.
Thank you.
So now we move on to our last and third session of the day, where we have Karan, another young member from New Delhi, India. Thank you, Karan, for being with us, and I'll briefly introduce you to our members. Karan is a fellow chartered accountant and founder of Startup Fino. Startup Fino works with around 200 funded startups in India and abroad. Karan has been working with startups since 2011, when he qualified as a chartered accountant, and Karan has the good expertise to help first-time founders to set up their entity in India or overseas and to structure it well. Karan is working closely with many institutional investors and angel investors. He has been helping startups to connect them to the right VC and to handle the entire fundraising journey. Karan has managed around 56 series of Series A, Series B due diligence, and he very well understands the compliance expectations of investor group, and therefore he helps the startups he works with to do the same. So thank you, Karan. Thank you for being here. You will be talking about a very important topic today, fundraising, and I'm sure this will help our members, our guests, in a great way. I request all our members who are present here to please give a big virtual round of applause for our respective speaker, Karan Malhotra. And Karan, the screen is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prabdeep, for such a detailed introduction, and a very good evening to you as well. And I would like to give a very good evening to all the fellow members who have invested their time and have joined today, for this call. And a good respect to all the seniors, members who have joined today, basically. So, yeah, before joining and coming to the topic directly, as you mentioned, like I am been into the ecosystem, like startup ecosystem, for quite a good time now, and have seen the like fundraising is kind of my domain expertise, like since inception, essentially. So today, essentially, the purpose of like the objective of today's discussion essentially is to understand, like, have members understand all the practical issues that entrepreneurs face while they decide that they want the fundraising in their business, basically. So, in order to start the topic, maybe I would like to share my screen, basically, and share the presentation. Just give me 1 second. I hope my screen is able to.
Yes, Karan, very well. Thank you. Yeah.
Sure. So, as I mentioned, the topic is like fundraising in entrepreneurship, basically. Before we start the topic, let us try to understand the topic itself, basically. As everyone understand, like entrepreneurship is like a business, basically, or maybe startup, or like you name it, like any other name, right? So fundraising is like the process of raising money or process of raising funds in a business or in a startup, basically. Now, let us assume that you are a founder and you have realized that you need money in your startup or in your business for the purpose of growth, or maybe for the purpose of solving your working capital, or maybe for any other purposes. So, as soon as you decide that you want to raise money for your company, basically, then this process will be called as a fundraising process, basically. Now, we all understand, if we decide to raise money or funds in our startup, there are two ways to raise money. One would be to dilute our equity, or to raise, like to issue the shares of our company, basically, and to raise money, like that we will call as an equity investment. Or the other way is like raising money via debt, basically. Debt means you raise money from your bankers, or maybe venture debt, like capitalist firm or some other like lenders, where they give you the money and you have the obligation to repay it back, and you have to service the interest as well, basically. We all are essentially aware about the debt being the fundraising domain, because I think it is most traditional way to raise money, where you have to give a lot of project reports, CMA data to your bank, or maybe the venture debt parties, and they will evaluate your profitability. And even if you are loss making company, they will evaluate your path to profitability in the future, and they will grant you the debt, basically, which you will serve over the time, basically. So essentially, I would be more focused towards raising the like fundraising via equity investment, where being as a founder, you have to dilute your equity. In other words, you have to issue the shares to the investors, basically. Just want to share one insight to all of the members, that most of the founders think that raising money via issuing the equity is more beneficial for them, because there is no repayment obligation, basically. But what I have learned over the year is that raising money via equity investment is the most expensive way of raising money, basically, because essentially आप अपनी कंपनी को बेच के you are getting the money, right? Like you are selling the stake of your company, you are selling the shares of your company, and then you are getting the money, basically. So therefore, I always suggest to all the founders that I work with, you should only raise money via equity if you need money for the growth, basically. In case you feel that you need money for the purpose of solving your working capital needs, then I think raising money via debt would make more sense, basically. So that's how I think I have learned over the years. Now, if we come back to the equity raising, I think I have divided today's discussion into few of the like buckets, where in the first we will understand the entire journey of equity fundraising. Then we'll discuss about pitch deck and financial model. I think these are the names that we have heard multiple times, but I'll give some insights around the same. Then we'll discuss around term sheet. Then post term sheet, investors will do a diligence. We'll discuss about that. Then post deletion, there are some condition precedents and condition subsequents. And then there would be a shareholders agreement and share subscription agreement. We'll learn about that as well. And then later on, we'll see a lot of compliances that is being involved via fundraising. So for any professional that who want to advise to all the startups, or not even the startups, to any business who want to raise money, if they understand all these pointers, I think they would be able to advise their clients appropriately. So I would like to start today's discussion where I have created a flow chart which defines the entire journey of raising money, basically. So first of all, I think the first step itself is the need. As a founder, if we realize that there is a need of money, then I think the step, essentially, this is a step one. Then what we have to do? We have to create a pitch deck, and pitch deck is nothing a PowerPoint presentation which defines about our business, basically, and which gives the right conviction to the investor that why investor will only invest in you and not to the any other startup or the company, basically. So hence my request to all the founders generally is basically you should be focused in terms of giving a right problem and making problem so big. So as an investor, when I invest in any startup, I think I generally see 2 or 3 things essentially, basically, apart from founder's profile and few other stuff, basically, is whether the problem is genuinely a problem or not, or is it a big problem or not, basically. If we realize that the problem is a good problem, basically, then I think the second and the only answer we need, whether the founders from whom we are getting the pitch are the right set of founders who will be able to solve this particular problem, basically. मतलब कोई ना कोई तो solve करेगा. Investor just want whether you are the only one who will be solving it, basically. So via your pitch deck, if you can give that conviction to your investors that you are the right set of founders, basically, right mix of founders who can really solve this problem, basically. So I think most of the things will get sorted. So I think step one would be to prepare pitch deck and the financial model. Financial model is just the projections for your future. Then in step 2, you should start pitching the investors. Now, this is again very important. Selecting the right set of investors for your startup is very critical, basically. It's not we should not just get the money only for the sake of money. We should also invite a good set of investors in our cap table, basically, because these investors generally add a lot of value at a later stage, basically. So once we start pitching the investors, out of them, obviously, we'll start getting some of the interest from some of the selected investors, basically. And then we have to attend the investment committee meetings, basically. So that's step 3, basically. Once we attend, say, IC meetings and investors, let's say, interest aata, and they say, yes, we are willing to invest. And the next communication is a term sheet. So term sheet is like a summarized version. It's like a 1 or 2 page document, basically, which generally gives a summary of the key terms which is being agreed between the founders and the investors, basically. It's a very summarized version of an agreement, basically. So once you get a term sheet, basically, next they will appoint some firm, investor will generally appoint a firm for doing the financial diligence and legal diligence, because they will be getting the stakeholder of the company. So before they invest, they generally want, basically, that everything is clean enough, basically. So in the financial diligence, they will check the balance sheet. They'll do all the compliance checks, finance related stuff. And in the legal diligence, they will look into more of the legal agreements, intellectual properties, more of the secretarial stuff and all, basically. So once I think diligence is completed, then the auditor who will do a diligence will refer the CP and CS pointers. CP means condition precedent and CS means condition subsequent. As the name suggests, CPs are those conditions which are higher red flags. that means the major red flags that they have find out during a diligence, they identify that as a CP. For all the minor flags, they can say the CS. Now, the relevance of CP is you have to fulfill all the CPs before you get the money from your investor, basically. And hence, whenever the auditor identifies CP and CS, founder generally ask to put most of the pointers under CS so that they get the money faster in the bank, basically. So I think once the founder and investor align on the CP and CS, the next step is to execute a detailed agreement, which is called share subscription agreement and shareholders agreement, basically, which is a detailed version of a term sheet only, basically, which was agreed earlier. After step 7, then the next step is to, obviously, you need to have buffer capital with the ROC. So you need to increase your authorized capital and you need to issue the shares via filing of MGT 14 with the ROC, basically. Post you file the MGT 14, then the next step is to issue the letter of offer, which is called PAS 4, which is like a ROC matter, basically. You have to issue the investor. So once you offer the PAS 4 to the investor will ask, where is my CP completion certificate? Means, where is my satisfaction letter which says that all the CPs are fulfilled, basically. Now you will give a CP completion certificate to your investor. Once you give that, they will immediately do the wiring. I think founders are only concerned about step number 11 because once they get money in the bank, generally they are happy, basically. But as a professional, we have to ensure that all the steps are completed. Hence, we will allot the shares to the investors as a next step, basically. And as per the Companies Act, we can only utilize the money only after allotment of shares. Hence, in step 13, we can use the money post that. Then in step 14, we'll issue the share certificate. And we'll do, in case of FDI, we'll do RBI reporting. And we have to pay stamp duty to the SCM. So essentially, what I have tried is, on the basis of my learnings, basically, I have divided the entire process of fundraise, basically, in these 16 steps, basically. Now, as we understand, very important factor of fundraise is the pitch deck. And that is a first and the most impression that you will have to give, basically. Although the pitch deck has to be like a 20-odd slider document, basically. But here I try to put some of the key pointers, basically, which you have to be there in your pitch deck, basically. One is the story, basically. Story means story related to your business, basically. What is the right proposition that you're solving, essentially. You have to tell your business story, basically. Then obviously you have to define your problem, and the problem has to be super big. You should not define a problem that investor will feel that this is not a fundable business and we don't want to invest in these business. And we have to define our problem by looking at a problem again and again in the eyes of investors, basically. Because any investor that invests in any business generally want a decent return, basically. And how they will be able to give you how you will be able to give the decent return to your investor is you will be able to do the business well, essentially. Or in other words, in the startup ecosystem, you will be able to raise the next round, basically. Because any investor who will be investing in the seed round has the only concern, this startup ka series A उठ जाएगा कि नहीं उठेगा, basically. Any investor who would be able to invest in Series A or Series B के लिए concerned होता है, because obviously most of the seed or pre-seed investors take exit at the time of Series B, basically. So hence, you have to even give the confidence to all your investors or prospective investors via your pitch deck that the problem is so big, basically, that even if you give the money and we will be able to scale up really well, we would need the further capital, or we will become profitable, basically, and hence we will obviously grow well and give you the decent exit, basically. Then you have to give solution statement. And while giving a solution statement, you have to be very careful by telling that why you are the best person to solve this problem, basically. Then obviously market product validation, whether you have done product market fit or not, basically. What is your financial model, basically? Now, if you talk to most of the theoretical, and most of the theoretical understanding is that you have to build a projection for 5 years, basically. But if you tell me from my practical experience, none of the VC ask for the projections of the next 5 years or 60 months, basically. Because of the reason is that it is very hard to predict next 5 years for any business founder, basically. For any good projections, I would strongly suggest founders to only limit it to 12 months or 18 months, basically, because then you would be able to actually give the right projections and a detailed projections, basically, which you would be able to justify, basically. So financial model is very important part of a pitch deck. Then obviously competition, like if there are other businesses who are into a similar type of business, how you are better than them, basically. And obviously if they are bigger than you, then how you will be able to sustain, basically, even if you get the capital. And the last would be the very important, which is a team, actually, like how your team is the best team to solve this problem, basically. So I think these are the very important areas which you have to define in the pitch deck. The next important factor in the right side is financial model, basically. In the financial model, I think P&L, balance sheet, cash flow, we all understand. I think direct cost, selling, general admin, team, working capital. I think we all understand these things, basically. The important one insight I have already given is that we should build it only for 12 or 18 months for the period that we can really predict, actually. Secondly, more importantly, most of the founders are super optimistic when they build their financial model, basically. They generally say, within 5 years, we'll build a company and we'll make, let's say, we'll build a company of, let's say, $100 million, basically. Like the ARR will be that, basically. So I think there is no problem of being optimistic or super optimistic, basically. And as an investor, actually, when I generally see any financial model, or even if any VC see the financial model, they generally don't doubt on the founder's capability of putting the very optimistic revenues, basically. What they generally see, they see the intelligence of the founders to accommodate the appropriate cost for achieving that revenue. For example, अगर आपने ये कह दिया 18 months बाद आपका top line let's say 100 crore रुपए हो जाएगा, basically. When I say top line, it's like GMV or revenue, basically. Then they're okay. ठीक है यार, 18 महीने में you'll do great, you'll make 100 crores. That is completely okay, basically. But in order to achieve that 100 crores, whether all the costs are being considered appropriately or not is very important. पता चले आपने 2 लोगों की मार्केटिंग टीम रखी हुई है एंड आप ये कह रहे हो कि यार आपने 100 करोड़ का रेवेन्यू कर दोगे, then investor will say यार ये तो नहीं हो पाएगा, basically. Then founder does not have a clear clarity. So you have to very sure that the cost that is being required to achieve that revenue is being considered appropriately, basically, so that even if you achieve that number theoretically, Excel may easy to extrapolate the numbers in the Excel, basically, but at least your intelligence is there, basically, while building a financial model. Then I think let's quickly discuss a term sheet, basically. As I mentioned, the term sheet is a couple of pages, it's a summarized version, basically, of a shareholders agreement, basically. So here you can see I have given a draft term sheet, basically, just to give you a visual clarity that how term sheet looks like, basically. It is as you see, it defines the business, it defines who are the founders, what is the current capital structure, what is the instrument, whether you will be getting the equity shares or the preference shares, what is the dividend in case of preference shares, what is the valuation of the company, pre-money, post-money valuation, then whether investor is having a pro rata, whether investor is having a preemptive rights, whether investor is having an anti-dilution protection, what will happen at the time of conversion, whether investor will have how much lock-in promoters have, that means till what time promoter cannot sell their shares, basically. Right of first refusal or right of first offer, basically. Tag along, ESOP pool, what will be ESOP pool, affirmative vote items is those items which founder has to take prior approval of the investors in order to do these things. Investor will say, boss, अगला बार जब भी पैसा उठाओगे, you have to take my approval. So that's called affirmative vote items, basically. Liquidation preference. So in case of a liquidation or exit, whether investor will get the first priority or not, and exit, everything. I think these are the condition precedents क्या होंगे, as I mentioned. then representation warranties, events of default, who will bear the diligence cost, confidentiality, termination. So the basic clauses, but the majorly in terms of conceptual clarity, what you have to understand here is basically this is a summarized version of the terms that is being there between the parties, basically. So I think this pre and post cap table, basically. Then I think term sheet we get because I think we have limited time, so I'm moving a little quickly, basically. But once you get the term sheet, then the diligence gets started. Here also I have given a sample checklist of a diligence, like a financial diligence, basically. If you see, it will ask you all the MIS. It will ask you, give me the difference between the MIS and the actual PR balance sheet. Give me the data of employee cost. Give me the salary sheets. Reconcile the salary sheets with the P&L. Give me the fixed asset register. Give me the aging of receivables, basically. And one important insight, again, yes, up to I think you are more experts in this, basically. Largely, let me give you one important insight. When any VC or an investor do a diligence, they generally are particular about 2-3 things only, basically. One is the revenue of the company, basically, because they know most of the founders, and especially like IIT, IIM alumni, they are very smart, basically. They generally inflate their revenue numbers, basically, and sometimes unintentionally, and sometimes maybe intentionally as well, in terms of getting more pressure of raising money fast, basically. So they know that most of the founders sometimes inflate the revenue. So when they appoint any partner for doing a diligence, basically, they just ask them to give them the extra quantum of effort, basically, in terms of verifying whether the revenue which was quoted before getting a term sheet, basically, is actually there in the ground or not, basically. So when you are raising the money, basically, or even if you are advising any startup, you should first ensure that your revenues are very sorted, basically. So even if you have not paid GST, I'm not saying that we are not supposed to have the compliance, but what I'm trying to let you know is, even if you are not good in the compliances, they are okay with it because they are not much concerned about the TDS, GST, EPF, ESI compliances. They are still okay, basically. But if you have a material difference between the top line, basically, then they are not okay with it, basically, because they have given you the valuation on the basis of your actual revenue only, basically. So that's very important. Second is very important is they are very particular about the people related stuff, like your employees related stuff, basically. Whether your employees whether you are managing your employees properly or not, basically. Because of the thing is, because they are very afraid of the labor law compliances, basically, because most of these employment laws or PF, ESI or professional tax, labor welfare fund. So if you're advising any startup, basically, you should always consider these compliances very carefully, because that is one of the area that investors consider very important. Thirdly, very important stuff is the intellectual property of the company, basically. That means IP, basically. So when I say IP, whether the founder are smart enough to protect his trade name via filing a trademark. Number two, whether if he is hiring freelancers or if he is hiring employees, whether he is getting the NDA sign or not, like non-disclosure agreement, basically. So if you're the founder, and if you have at least these three things sorted, I can tell you from my experience, I think even if you have flags in the other areas, I think you will be get through the funding and the diligence, basically. So diligence, I think these are the legal checklists where a lot of secretarial stuff are being asked, basically. Then post the diligence, as I mentioned, CP, CS, OP, basically. So condition precedent are those conditions which you have to fulfill prior getting a money, basically. So I think these are you will file the ROC, you will do that correction, you will do this correction and stuff like this. And conditions subsequent में timelines होती हैं कि within 7 days of raising money you will do this, within 15 days you will do this, within 30 days you will do this, within 90 days you will do this. So these are the negotiation which generally are there always between the founders and the companies, basically. SHA, SSA is nothing, it's just a detailed version of term sheet only. So I'm just skipping that today. Then I think that the last section of today would be secretarial compliances before getting a money and after getting a money, basically. Before getting a money, as I mentioned, you have to increase your authorized capital. You have to hold a board meeting for the issue of the share. You have to hold EGM for the authorizing director to sign the shareholders agreement. You have to file issue pass 4, which is offer letter. You have to file MGD 14 with the ROC. You have to issue pass 4 to the investors, and you have to issue the CP completion certificate. So I think पैसा मिलने से पहले तो बस यही चाहिए. But once you get the money in the bank, you have to both hold the BM to allot the shares. You have to file pass 3 with the ROC. You have to issue share certificates. You have to obviously complete condition subsequents as well. You have to file stamp duty with the SCM. Yeah, in case of FDI, you will also have to do the FCGPR and the RBI reporting. And you have to amend the AOA by incorporating the terms of SHA in the AOA, which is your Articles of Association, basically. So essentially, if you understood these compliances, basically, then I think largely when you're advising any startup in respect of fundraise, essentially it becomes quite easier for you to understand. So I think this is, I think, majorly about fundraise discussion primarily, which I had today. Essentially, I would be happy to answer any of the questions that you guys have, basically, because I think fundraising is always a very interesting topic, basically, and most of the founders always have many questions around it, basically, around term sheets, around the shareholders agreement, around the pitch deck, basically, around the financial model, basically. And what I believe is, as a professional, because we as a chartered accountants understand the numbers quite well, basically, and hence we would be able to advise most of the founders appropriately. Yeah, thanks Prabdeep again, actually, for I think giving me the opportunity to speak on this topic.
Yes, Karan, we still have 13 minutes,
Sure.
and we will be having our central council member, Madam CA Preeti Savla, who will be joining in soon for formal vote of thanks. So therefore,
I think take the term sheet in detail. I think that would be one of the interesting topics for any, maybe because I have moved it faster, basically, earlier.
Right. You can, and I would request our members, if they have any questions, they can type in, and then we can take those. Yeah. Okay. So you can take that.
Sure. Definitely. Let me do that. Yeah. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Sure. So I think maybe we can discuss around term sheet, basically, which is again going to be very important document as an understanding, and I can cover it on a point-wise discussion, basically. So as you see, the first, I think, paragraph would be this term sheet is executed on so-and-so date. Summarize the principal terms. So this will be an in principle understanding between the investors, basically, and the founders, basically. The term sheet is meant to facilitate the negotiation for the proposed transaction that is about to happen, basically. If you see, the first topic is the business. So I think term sheet first define about the nature of business of the company, basically. So which is, I think, 1.1. 1.2, they mention that who are the founders of the company, basically. 1.3, it says that what is the current capital structure. That means what is the authorized share capital of the company, and what is the paid up share capital of the company, what is the current cap table of the company, who is sitting in the cap table of the company, basically. So I think the current capital structure is one of the important area in the term sheet, basically. Then instrument. Here I again want to give some insights, actually very important insights. If you see practically, most of the investors are taking CCPS basically. CCPS means compulsorily convertible preference shares instead of equity shares basically, because we all understand basically, because preference shares, as the name suggests, generally have the preference at the time of like liquidation basically. And in case the startup becomes profitable basically, then they even have the preference at the time of payment of dividend as well basically. So I think this is the reason why they opt for the CCPS basically. Then the next clause would be dividend basically. So because in the nature of like raising money via equity, uh, we are not supposed to pay any dividend. But in terms of inherent nature of our preference shares, we have to attach a coupon rate like against that. So that's why you will witness in most of the shareholders agreement, the coupon rate is 0.001% or like 0.01%, which makes it very marginal and nominal for the company to pay that dividend to the investors. Like it is very low, basically. So that's why I think that the only logic of giving dividend is that, basically. Then the valuation. Valuation is like pre-money and post-money. Here also, I would like to give some insights, basically. So like valuations, if you see the valuation of the company, basically, then obviously you will heard two terminology. One is a pre-money valuation and the other is a post-money valuation. What is the difference behind this, like between this is pre-money valuation is the valuation of the company that is before raising any money, basically. Like for example, today I am like giving a presentation to you as an investor. Whatever valuation you will give to me today, it would be a pre-money valuation for me. Now, for example, you have given me the pre-money valuation of 56 crores, basically. Now, let's say you are putting 10 crores in my business as an investment. Now, my post-money valuation would be pre-money valuation plus the funding amount, which means 66 crores. So 56 crores was the pre-money valuation, 10 crores is the funding amount. Hence, the post-money valuation is 66 crores, basically. So I think this is the relevance of pre-money and post-money valuation, basically. Then proposed transaction is very straightforward. It is like it will mention that investor will invest this much amount and on the basis of final definitive agreement, and definitive agreement is the SHA and SSA, which will be executed after term sheet, basically. So I think this is one important thing. Then the advisory equity, basically. So advisory equity means equity which will be given to the advisors of the company, basically, or the mentors of the company, basically. Some of the startup choose to have a common pool for ESOPs and the advisory, basically. Now, and some might have a different pool as well. Like they define like 2% for the advisory and 8% for the ESOPs, basically. So, having said that, like that advisory pool also needs to be mentioned in the term sheet. Then the board composition. If you feel like, and you will observe as well, most of the investors will ask for a board seat, basically. Meaning of board seat is like they want to become a nominee director on behalf of investor in the in the board. However, what I suggest to most of the founders is like do not give any board seat prior to raising Series A, basically. Because most of the companies have two directors, like two promoters, basically. And if you give the board seat, like in your angel funding or maybe pre-seed funding only, then your later stage fundings will always like investor will always ask for the board seat because of the reason like the investor who will come at a seed round will say, okay, boss, because you have given the board seat to a pre-seed investors, hence it doesn't make any sense if you will not give it to me, basically. You will have to give it to me. If you give one director to like one board seat in the pre-seed round, one board seat in a seed round, then you will lose your majority in terms of board only at the time of Series A only, basically. But what we suggest is to lose the majority post Series B because at that point of time, a majority of the scale is already been achieved by the founders, basically. Hence, from the risk perspective as well, it is making more sense to give the board seat at a later stage, basically. Then, next important is the preemptive rights. Preemptive rights means the proprietor right to invest in the future round at the future value only, basically. This means, for example, if you have a post-money valuation of 10 crores, and if I am investing 1 crore in your company, that means I will be having 10% today, basically. So I, being the investor, will have 10% stake in your company. Now, tomorrow, let's say you will raise another round, then obviously my equity 10% will get diluted. And this will become, let's say, 7%, basically, because there are more number of shares which will be issued to the new investors. Hence, the denominator gets increased and my percentage will get reduced and diluted. Now, proprietor right, preemptive rights give me the right to invest 3% more to ensure that I will always retain 10% in the company. So that means whenever the next round will going to happen, a founder has an obligation to ask to the investor, okay, boss, I am raising a new round, basically, whether you are willing to invest like in the new round as per the valuation of new round, basically, in order to maintain your stake, basically. An investor has a right, but not the obligation to invest in the new round, basically.
Karan,
Sure.
can I disturb you here? Because a few minutes back, we got one comment from Lake Raj in Pune.
Sure.
He says that projections for 12 to 18 months is too short time horizon for an equity investor and also to get the financial results for long-term investments. So he wants you to comment on this. Yeah.
Yeah, Lake Raj. So I think if we all have learned in the books and in the valuations as well, basically, that 5 years, we generally need 5 years projections in order to build the right valuation of the company, basically. So like that means the 60 months projections, basically. That I completely agree. Even when I make any valuation, I also consider 60 months being the projections because that is being the requirement like of the DCF, like discounted cash flow. But when I was telling my insight on like 12 or 18 months, I was explaining you the financial model, basically. And we have to very much like, what we have to align is most of the valuation certificates, basically, in the startup world, basically, was prepared on the basis of reverse engineering, basically. That means initially founders and investors agrees on the valuation, basically, in the term sheet itself, that investor agrees to invest at that valuation, basically. And then obviously we prepare the valuation, which is like in line of that, basically. So having said that, basically, if you give the 5 years projections to any investor, basically, he will not mind, basically. But I think you as a founder would not be give more justice to that, basically. Because what you have to understand here is, it is very hard to predict next 60 months in any business, basically. So hence, when we are only discussing a limited concept of financial modeling, basically, when you are giving a model along with a pitch deck, basically, then what I have learned is like giving a value, like projections for 18 months makes more sense, basically, because that you can make it like with more justification, basically, and with more details, basically. So I hope this must have, I think, given you some insights against your question, basically. I would happy to answer if you have any further question on this.
Thanks, Karan. You can proceed. If there's any further comments, I'll share that with you.
Sure. So preemptive rights again as a prorata. Anti-dilution protection is like a protection to an investor for any down round. अब होता क्या है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ यू रेज द मनी एट 20 करोड़ बेसिकली एट अ वैल्यूएशन ऑफ 20 करोड़. अब यार इन्वेस्टर्स के माइंड में हमेशा रहेगा कि ठीक है आज तो मैंने 20 करोड़ रुपए पे पैसा लगा दिया बेसिकली, बट कहीं पे ये 20 करोड़ रुपए ज्यादा तो नहीं है, मतलब वेदर दिस इज नॉट ऑन हायर साइड, और इन अदर वर्ड्स कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं होगा कि कल को फाउंडर विल लाइक रेज द मनी एट अ लोअर वैल्यूएशन, even at a lower valuation than given to me basically. Hence they will give us the anti dilution protection in the term sheet. वो ये कहेंगे कि यार like as an founder, if in the future you will raise the money at a down round means at a valuation lesser than me basically, then what you have to do is you have to give extra shares to me proportionately, assuming my valuation is also the same valuation, like my valuation is also a lower valuation basically. So that's called the anti dilution. Then the conversion obviously CCPS, as the name suggests, compulsorily convertible preference shares basically will always convert into equity. And because in this CCPS, they generally have 1:1 like conversion factor, means one CCPS will get converted to a one equity shares basically. Then promoters lock in. This is again very important. So they lock founders to sell the stake in the company, because any investor invests in the founders. So they don't want their founders like get an exit. At the same time, if you are advising any founder, you should like advise him to negotiate it for a shorter period, basically. Or alternatively, what you could do is when you are advising any company, you could advise them to get into a co-founders agreement between the co-founders, like very immediately on the date of incorporation only. If you have a co-founders agreement on the date of incorporation, and let's say 6 months later down the line, you get an investor basically, then you can negotiate with the investor that we already have a co-founders agreement where we agreed between the co-founders that co-founders will have a lock-in for 2 years basically. Hence, it is very difficult to change it to 4 years or 3 years basically. And this way you will be able to better negotiate it, I think. So then next is the ROFO and ROFO rights basically. That is very simple. That says that if investor will sell his shares in the future, then the founders has the first right to purchase them. I think that's very straightforward. Then tag along right. Tag along right says basically that tag, as the name suggests basically, which says that if the founders take the exit in the startup, like down the line, then investor will also sell his shares like his proportionate shares on the basis of his holding. So for example, like one of the founder has 50% stake in the company and investor has 5% stake basically. And let's say investor, like founder is selling, let's say out of 50%, founder is selling, let's say 5% stake, like 10% of his stake basically. Then tag along right says investor will also sell 10% of his stake to the same buyer basically. Like that's called tag along right. ESOP, I think we all understand. It's an employee stock option plan basically. It's a virtual pool that startups create for the future employees so that they can grant the ESOPs to the employees. And on the basis of vesting schedule, these ESOPs get vested and will be converted into a common stocks of the company basically. Then the affirmative voting rights basically, which says that investors like will have the rights on certain matters, which is a highly important matters basically, that such actions cannot be done without their prior approval basically. So I think these are those rights basically which investors have. Then the next is the liquidation preference basically, which says that like investors will get first preference at the time of exit basically. Like, so that's I think very straightforward. Information rights are the rights of the investors basically to get certain information. So वो कहते हैं you will send the MIS on a monthly basis. You will send your unaudited financials on a quarterly basis. You will send your audited financial within 60 days of the end of the year, basically. You will send your projections as well. So most of the information that investors would like to seek from the company. Then the exit mechanism. कि यार ठीक है पैसे तो मैं लगा रहा हूँ, exit कैसे दोगे? तो exit के लिए I think investor says that like either you give the exit at the time of IPO, which like it's hard to get basically, but yes, at least in the document we should cover it. और कल को कोई merger acquisition होता है, कोई strategic sale होती है, then I will get the exit. और या फिर तुम बाय बैक कर लेना शेयर्स बेसिकली, मतलब या फिर यू विल फाइंड लाइक योर लाइक buyer for me basically like in the future. Free transferability says that like investor can transfer the shares to anyone except the competitor of the company basically. Power of attorney I think is straightforward. Like definitive document is the shareholders and share subscription agreement basically, where investors generally says like that these are the final documents and the binding documents for us basically. Then condition precedents to closing are those conditions, as we already discussed, needs to be fulfilled prior to getting money, basically. So I think these are those conditions. Then standstill provisions are those provisions, basically, which will like remain like still like even if their funding happens or not happen, basically. So I think that's that. Representation and warranties. There is a detailed annexure in the SHA.
Yeah, Karan, how much time it will take? Because we are over time now, we can close.
Yeah, it will take like I'll close in just 2 minutes, basically.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Yeah, so I think representation are the detailed representation, basically. I think that founders generally give. Then I think the stat approval. Those are those approval that investors wanted founders to take prior to like closing. Events of defaults define some of the defaults that founder do that will happen. Expenses, the diligence expenses, I think that who will bear that cost. Term sheet defined. And confidentiality, I think we all know we have to maintain the confidentiality. Termination, like till what period this account is active. Amendment is how the term sheet will get amended. Governing law and arbitration, I think we all understand, and legally binding, basically. So I think this is the term sheet of document. So I think since we had more time, I think I tried to cover that term sheet as well, basically.
Thank you.
Yeah, Prabdeep.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Karan. Thank you so much for your very enlightening session and taking these terms, very specific terms in detail. And you spared your time for the committee for members in entrepreneurship and public service under leadership of Chairman C. Hans Rachuk and Vice Chairman C. Dheeraj Khandelwal. You took out time. Gratitude on behalf of the committee and the leadership of the committee to you for taking out your time. And we thank you once again for always being there to support the ICI initiatives. And we extend our best wishes for all your endeavors. All right. And we thank all our members who had been present here for the last 2 hours. We hope that this journey was very good for each one of you. And we are looking forward to meet you tomorrow at 6 p.m. Indian Standard Time. From wherever you are, please be here at 6 p.m. And tomorrow we have 3 speakers for 3 different topics, and we are expecting to make a big difference tomorrow with this continued initiative. Okay. And stay safe. Take care. Bye-bye.
Sure.
Karan, anything else you wish to say?
Yeah, I think thank you so much, Prabdeep.
Okay.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.